Okay, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Okay, so I had dropped in the chat that I have been working on a little project. I have been just asking different Jules some questions, and I wanted to compile some of that information for you all to kind of give you a better insight on what it takes to become a jewel in this company. Sometimes I think it feels like a big mystery if you're not there yet. Um, and pretty much once you get there, you're like, a lot of most people are like, I'm not exactly sure what I did, right? It was more like the decision of, I'm going after this, I'm doing this, and then everything else kind of started to fall into place because truly every single person that you talk to who has made it to the top of this company, you will find that for every single one of them, it literally started with a decision, right? And that's how it goes for all of our goals, right? It has to start with a decision and it's not just a want, okay? And so I have been having a very similar conversation with lots of different people on our team, and I will keep everybody's names anonymous. But a similar conversation that I've been having with lots of people over the last few weeks is I really want this, but I'm frustrated that I'm not as far along as I thought that I would be, right? So I want to clarify something. Does everyone realize that there is a huge difference between a want and being willing to work for the things that you want? Because I could go out and do a survey and I could ask every single person pretty much in the entire United States, right? I could say, how many of you want to make 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, $20,000 a month? Every single person is going to say, yes, I want that, right? I don't know anyone who's going to say that they don't want that kind of money. I don't know anyone who would want to turn down a few extra $1,000 a month, right? This is something that everybody across the board wants. But the difference is who is actually willing to do what it takes to get there. And something I'm realizing about myself, because we're all in this together, we're all growing, we're all up leveling. You don't just get to diamond and then just stop. That's not how it works. Okay. We've been diamond for 5 years. We are currently building on Phil's leg to emerald. And so there are a lot of lessons and a lot of things that I have been learning in this season about growth, about things that I have been unwilling to do. And I think most of you have read the book Build to Last by Keith Callahan. If you have not read that, I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic book. It's probably one of the best books I've ever read on network marketing. Okay. All of our new builders, we have them start off reading that because it just really sets the groundwork for what to expect when you get into this industry and to make it to the top. But something that he talks about in there is your list of things that you are willing to do and a list of things that you are unwilling to do. And there were a lot of things over the years that I didn't realize were on my I'm unwilling to do list because I didn't really look at it that way. Here are some things that I discovered about myself, especially when it comes to growing on social media. For years, I have been unwilling to make silly videos while I'm in a store, okay? Like I could like pan around and be like real casual, kind of like undercover, you know how you do like you whip out your phone real quick and hope that nobody notices that you're like scanning around the store and taking a video, right? Like the very nonchalant whatever. But I would watch Trisha like she obviously had to set up her phone in an aisle, right? And video herself doing ridiculous things. And I was like, that is so stupid. I am unwilling to do that. Okay. For years, I've been unwilling to do that. And I've been like, why isn't my Instagram growing? Why are my reels not getting any traction? Well, because when you post one every 2 weeks, right, it's not very consistent. And when you're unwilling to make the content that they're saying to make, right? it's no wonder that I wasn't growing. I was unwilling to have conversations with these random people because it felt weird to me, right? On social media. And I was fine having conversations with people that I knew or were connected with, but I was unwilling to kind of to bridge into these new conversations, okay? So these are all things that I'm discovering about myself as a diamond of things that I was unwilling to do. Um, and so I realized that list was a lot different when I was growing to emerald and diamond, right? I had almost nothing on that list that I wasn't willing to do, right? Anytime somebody would suggest something to me, or I would hear about someone doing something, or I would listen to a training, or they would be like, hey, listen to this podcast, or go out and do this thing, or I would jump on and do it. But it first started with, I remember, okay, I think I was gold at the time. And I sat down with a typical IPA sheet. You guys, those have not changed in the last 10 years, okay? They're pretty much basically exactly the same. How to run this business. And I sat down with it. I went through all of the things and I was like, okay, post daily on Facebook. I can do that. This was before we didn't even have stories then, right? And reels weren't even a thing. Like social media has radically changed since I was going emerald. Okay. So we didn't have any of those things, but posting daily on social media, done. I can do that. Um, Messaging however many, 3 to 5 people a day, done. I can do that. Wishing people a happy birthday, done. I can do that. Following up with people that I had conversations with, done. I can do that. And then there was this little part of the sheet that said, add 2 new friends to Facebook. And I looked at Phil and I said, that's so stupid. I'm not doing it. And he said, why are you willing to do every other thing that is on that list, but you're unwilling to add 2 new people to Facebook? He was like, let's think long term, right? Why are they asking you to do that? He's like, because you constantly have to be filling your funnel with new people. And he's like, if you're not constantly adding to your network, you will run out of people to talk to. And I was like, okay, that's a really good point. I still don't want to do it. And so he was like, okay, well, I up you the challenge. I want you to go out and meet 2 new people every single day in person. He was like, forget adding the friends on Facebook. He was like, we're going to make it even harder. Okay. Because that's what you do when you are running after goals, is that you don't just do the things that they say you should do. You're not just doing the bare minimum. You're not just checking off the boxes of things that you need to do. You're truly up leveling and taking it to the next level. Sometimes that comes from a suggestion from an accountability partner. Sometimes that comes from you looking at that and being like, you know what? I have bigger goals than what's on this basic bare minimum sheet that they say that I should do in order to grow a business. And so I share those things with you because we all have stuff that we are unwilling to do in our business. And so part of this is you have to, if you want to become a jewel, which drop a 1 in the comment if you want to become a jewel in this company. Probably most of you, or else you wouldn't all, 30 of you wouldn't be jumping on here on a Monday morning. You would be going and you'd be doing something else. Okay. So everybody wants it, right? Everybody wants to be a jewel, but who is truly willing to do what it takes to be a jewel? So when you sit down and you look and you assess where your business is, you have to do this often. You have to assess where you are at and you have to be honest with yourself. This is what I find to be typical. People are not necessarily at the ranks that they want, or they thought that their points would be higher, or wherever it is, and they spend all this time beating themselves up because they're not where they want to be, yet they are getting frustrated, but they didn't do the work that was required in order to reach those certain goals, right? This is literally, I mean, many, many conversations I've been having with people over the last few weeks about this exact topic. They're like, I'm frustrated. And I said, okay, so let's kind of assess what you've been doing, right? We kind of break down what are the things that they've been doing every single day in their businesses, how much time have they been pouring into it. And the conclusion is that they have not been doing enough things that they were unwilling to do. And they have not been putting in nearly as many hours as they thought, right? Some of you have a very false perception of where you actually are in your business. And so I want to encourage you guys to do a little audit of yourself. I want you guys to go through and I want you to look over the last like 3 or 4 months. I think for some of you, this was super eye-opening. When we had the rule of in the last 3 months or in the last 4 months, you needed to add 3 people, right? That's like bare minimum business growth things, right? So I want you to go through and I want you to see how many people have you added in the last 4 months? How many people have you added since January? How many people have you added in the year 2025? What do those numbers look like? And then what it has your silver development been based off of those new level ones that you've had, right? Sometimes you think that you have been doing more work than you actually have. Thinking about working is not working. Okay. I'm just going to say that again for the people on the back. You thinking about sending messages to people is not sending messages to people. You thinking about a post that you want to do, but you don't actually post it, that is not posting. Having a great reel idea that you never record and you never post is not working, right? Thinking about a wonderful opportunity Zoom that you could host for your team and for your people or just to invite to personally. I have done opportunity Zooms all the time just for myself, just to invite to people. I see Alicia on here. I know that she's done that too, okay? And there's lots of you on here who have done that, right? But thinking about it and not doing it, right? So thinking is not working. All it's doing is it's straining your bandwidth. And so that is going to jump into my next thing, right? So we have to do an honest assessment. Where are you truly at in your business? How many people on average are you signing up? How many of those people are you helping to go silver, right? You can see gaps. Numbers don't lie, right? Numbers are going to tell you the truth about what you're doing, not just, oh, I was thinking about it. Or sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, I've sent so many messages because it felt like a lot. And the reality is it was 5. Okay. So, like, you have to be honest about where you're at. Where are your points truly? Not where did you want your points to be? Where did your points end last month? Where were your points the last 3 months? Are they going up? Are they going down? Where's the gaps? What's going on? Be honest with yourself. Okay. Phil gave this analogy the other day on a coaching call. And he said, it is like a GPS, right? The goal is to be a jewel, the goal is to be emerald. But if you are not honest with yourself about where you are starting at and you are trying to put directions into a destination, you are never going to get there. It is like you are going to be making rights all day long. They're like, I'm doing the things, I'm doing the things, I'm making right turns, I'm making right turns, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But because you were not honest about where you were starting, you are literally spinning in circles, okay? The GPS can only give you directions to your destination if you truly know where you're starting at. If you have this facade of where you're at in your business and you're trying to get to the goal, you're not going to get there because you're not honest. So just be honest with yourself about where you're at. What work have you actually done? Right? What are the things that have been on your I'm unwilling to do list, but now you're going to move them over? Because the less things that you can have on your I'm unwilling to do list, the quicker that your business is going to grow. The quicker that you jump into action when you have an idea, the faster it's going to grow. Okay. And so, with being honest about where you're at with your time and what that is taking, I want to share with you guys some of the questions. So mainly I went through and I asked a bunch of jewels. Okay. I was asking them, when you were going for emeralds, how many hours a week were you working? And before I share any examples, I would like you guys to drop in the comments how many hours a week you think that people were working to get to Emerald. Just drop some guesses in the comments. I would like to see. Okay. We've got 30, 20, 20, 40, 10. Okay. 45. Okay. 40 to 60, 35, 40. Okay. These are great guesses. Now, I would like to know how many hours a week do you typically put into your business? Not that you put into thinking about working your business, but if you were 100% honest with yourself, and this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sending messages. I'm talking about hosting opportunity calls. I'm talking about following up with people. I'm talking about meeting new people in person. I'm talking about like the actual needle moving things, not like scrolling social media, right? Trying to figure out what you're going to post, all those different kinds of things, right? So you have to be honest with yourself about how many hours you're putting in, okay? So on average, when I was talking with Jules, a bare minimum for what people were working when they went Emeralds, bare minimum was 20 hours a week, right? Most, it was like a full-time job, at least 40 hours a week. Here's something that I want you to hear. The beauty of this business is that you can make a full-time income on part-time hours, but there's a caveat to that. You have to be willing to give more than a normal job up front, and you will get paid later on more than what you thought. I'm on a call. You're gonna go. No, not right now. I'm on a call. Okay, so this is where people get caught up. Okay, they get caught up because they're trained to work in a typical you put X amount of hours into a job, you have an hourly rate or you have a salary, you work those 40 hours and you get paid X amount. Network marketing does not work like that. You guys, for 3 years, I worked probably 40 hours a week. Some seasons when we were going diamond, I was on calls for like 12 hours a day. That's not even an exaggeration, okay? But it was like 4 months that we worked insane and then hit that, okay? I still work a lot as a diamond, but I do not work like somebody like a 40-hour a week clock in, clock out kind of job, right? But what I want you to hear me is that I did work more than that, or at least that, as I was growing my business. But I've been diamond for 5 years now, okay? So I worked like that for 3 years, okay? It is 1000% worth it. 1000% worth it to be getting the kind of crazy income that we're getting for those hours, okay? And so I want to read you one of these answers, okay? This is from a diamond that I love and I highly respect. And she said, the month I went Emerald, and so there is like a difference between leading up to Emerald and then like the actual Emerald month. Actual Emerald month, I mean, numbers go out the window. You're working as much as you possibly can, okay? There is no like regular set hours that month, just so you know, okay? She said, the month I went Emerald, I worked any chance I got. I chose a few specific things I'd do to keep me and the family happy, and all else was work. The whole family was on board. Now I'd say I probably work 30 hours a week if we count some of the messages during the day, not just sit down hours. I think it's more about energy management than time management, though. Okay. This is a highly respected diamond that I love. She's a star diamond. She makes almost $1 million a year. Okay. And she's working 30 hours a week. Who else do you know that works 30 hours a week and makes almost $1 million in any other industry? Somebody please name one for me. It doesn't exist, right? But she did her time early on, right? And she still puts time in to grow, to maintain, to build new legs, to build new jewels, to do different things. But if you are unwilling to put in the actual time that it takes and to make those trade-offs, you are never, ever going to get it to Emerald. You're not going to get there working 2 to 3 hours a week. You're not going to get there working 10 hours a week. And I'm not saying that this is like you need to sit down at a desk for 10 hours a day. I'm not talking about that, right? There's so many networking things that you can do. There's so many different opportunities like to be out in person. Really, that community sense is coming back. People want that. They want the in-person events. They want to talk to people. They want to go on coffee dates. They want to have business dinners. They want to do those kinds of things, okay? But I think that it's really important. I'm going to read you another one, okay? Um, and let me see. But basically, the conclusion was almost every single jewel that I talked to said that they were working bare minimum 20 hours a week. Most of them, it was more like a full-time job, 30 to 40 hours a week. The month they went Emerald, all bets were off. It was literally every single waking hour that they possibly could. Okay. And this is what she said. I was like, okay, how many hours a week did you work when you were going to get to Emerald? And she said, as many as there were in a day. Like, I didn't have times that I sat down and just worked. I was just always working, never not working. Okay. Like, some of you are like, I'm unwilling to do that. Well, that's great. You're never going to get paid what I get paid. Like, that's fine if that's truly where you're at, but the want is there, but the willingness is not there. So I want you guys to truly get it. And here's the thing, if you're like, I don't ever want to put hours in like that, that's okay. If you are happy with your gold income, your senior gold income, your ruby income, and you're like, Emerald is not for me, that's okay. Be honest with yourself about where you're at because there is no sense in beating yourself up over a goal that you didn't hit because of work that you were unwilling to do. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves and say, I actually really just love where I'm at. I love this spot. I'm unwilling to do, and call it what it is because it's you're unwilling, right? And if you can't figure out why there's this gap and why you haven't gotten to where you want to go, everyone who has ever done a coaching call with a leader, I know is the only thing that you literally are not allowed to say on a coaching call with us is, I don't know. Okay. The real answer is you're unwilling to see it. You're unwilling to dig deep. You're unwilling to go there to find out like what is actually going on. Okay. And so, but again, with the GPS, right? If you want to put in that destination and you actually want to get there and you want the directions on how to do it, right? You have to be honest with where you're starting from. And different seasons are they're going to look different, right? Some seasons are going to be higher grind than others. But it is still a continual work thing, right? And you constantly have to assess yourself and figure out like, where am I right now? Because you're just going it doesn't make any sense to spend a lot of time being frustrated with yourself over the work that you weren't willing to do. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. So basically, in all of those surveys and asking all of those jewels, right? Everybody's saying they worked a lot of hours. And that's the way that this network marketing business is. You put this work up front way more than what you feel like you're getting paid for. I felt like I was putting in so much and I was not yet seeing it in my paycheck. And this is where you have to hold that vision, that stronger, bigger vision for what you want in your life. And when things get hard, you can't stop. Okay. When things get hard, that means you need to build up your resilience muscle because it truly is a muscle and you need to not let those things stop you. And every single time you let those hard things stop you, you're like starting back over. Okay. And I have seen so many people over the years start and then stop. And it gets a little hard and then they stop. And then it gets a little hard and then they go back. And it's like y'all have started and stopped over and over and over again, where I just plowed through for 3 years. And I was like, you know what? Come hell or high water, this is what we're doing. And I don't regret it one bit. Okay. My kids don't regret it. Actually, so the month that we went Emerald, like that summer that we went Emerald, we actually had a live-in nanny for a season. I forgot about this until I was asking people at how many hours. We didn't have one for forever, right? We had one for a little season, and not everyone can do that. But for us, it was like we had these really big goals of where we wanted to go, and that just made the most sense for us in that short season. And so we did. We had someone who was there. She was helping with laundry. She was helping with cooking. She was helping watching the kids. My kids were so well taken care of. They loved it. They were living their best life, right? And that was an investment that we were willing to make to be able to get us to where we wanted to. And I'm not saying that you need to do that, but that is something that I often forget about when I think about how much I was working to get to Emerald. You guys, we went Emerald in a year, 1 year. Okay. That's a lot. And I have realized, especially as we have been like growing Feels Like and going to Emerald, there's so many different lessons that I forgot about, right? There's so many different things, there's so many different things that happen. But the number one thing that I am realizing is right? We didn't deserve Emerald yet on Phil's leg because there are certain things that we have been unwilling to do, right? And I am realizing that even just in different leadership capacities, right? So how many of you have ever like had a group that you started or a chat that you've been running or something that you've done and you just like expected all of this participation and then things didn't happen? Like has anybody ever had that? Probably most of us have had something similar, okay? Or you've had a season in your business where you went through some really hard things in life. You know, we came really, really close to Emerald on Phil's leg last year, this time last year, actually. Came super, super close. I'm talking like within 75 points of Emerald, okay? Like real close. I will tell you to this day, we are nowhere near that right now, okay? But we had a really, really hard season in our life. And here's something that I will tell you. It is very eye-opening when you have to take a step back to see who rises and who dips down, right? I'm not saying take a break intentionally from your business, right? But sometimes if life happens, use it as everything is feedback, right? Every single thing is feedback. So looking at those things and saying, okay, I thought this person was going to step up, they didn't, right? I thought that this person was going to this, they didn't. And it gives you, again, just an evaluation, right? Of where we're at. Where are my leaders at? Where am I at as a leader? Maybe there's certain areas that I thought, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing a better job leading in this, but there really seems to be a gap here. What things do I need to work on to help them be able to rise, right? Because it really all comes back to us and our leadership and our growth, not a pointing a finger of, well, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that? Like you can't just play this blame game either, right? It has to be on you. So if there's certain things that people underneath you, they're not getting, they're not understanding, they're not growing in certain areas of their leadership, of their business, right? We got to see, is this a systems problem? Is this a teaching problem? Is this an expectations problem? Do we just not have like high enough expectations, right? And it comes back to what area do I need to grow in so that then I can lead people in this. You guys, when I was going Emerald, I did not know what I was doing. Okay. I just want to make that like super, super clear. I had no idea what I was doing. The people who joined me, Amber and Kristen and Caitlin, my first three jewels, they joined me before I was gold. So if you're sitting here and you're like, I have to be a certain rank before I can lead people, I want to tell you right now that's BS. Okay. That is not true at all. You can be whatever rank. You can be silver. I was making videos at silver saying the girl who took 5 months to find three people, I'm telling people how to be successful in their business. How do you grow a successful business with Plexus, right? Making all these videos before I even hit gold, but I was vision casting for where I was going, right? You are never more relatable than you are right now in your business. I'm here to tell you, people don't relate to me. They think it's ridiculous. They think it's insane. How the heck did you pay off $100,000 in student loan debt in 15 months? I'm unrelatable, okay? It is actually harder now as a diamond to get people to buy into the business because what I make seems so far out of reach for people, right? But an extra few hundred dollars a month, a few extra $1,000 a month, that seems way more reasonable. So do not discredit where you're at in this business right now because it's all valid and it's super, super important. Okay. So you kind of have to just take that and you have to look at it. And so much of it is just assessing, it's evaluating, it's all of those different things, but it's also realizing that like you don't have to have it all together to lead, right? You just have to show up in that energy of I'm doing this, I'm willing to do this, not I want this. Every single person wants it. Are you willing to do what it takes? And once you make the decision of, I'm willing to do anything, then all of a sudden things start to fall into place, right? Once you've made the decision of, I'm going for this, I'm all in, I'm here for this. Once you make that decision, right, then it makes the biggest difference. Everything else starts to fall in line, but it will not start to fall in line until you make that decision. And you can't just say, you can't use your rank as an excuse. You can't say, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a senior gold yet. I'm not a ruby yet. I'm not a senior ruby yet. It doesn't matter because I wasn't even gold when my girls who became emeralds joined me. Okay. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I was very, very confident that we were going to get there. And I didn't know how we were going to get there, but I knew that we were. So, what I want you guys to do today is I want you to take an honest assessment of where you're at in your business. What things have you been unwilling to do that you are now going to be willing to do? How many hours have you actually been putting in, right? Versus, the goals that you have. Does your work ethic match the goals that you have, right? Be honest with yourself. Don't spend extra time beating yourself up if you knew you weren't willing to do the work, right? Like that's silly. Don't just think about doing work, actually do the work, right? So I'm excited for you guys because I know that you all have what it takes, but I need you all to be honest with yourself about where you're starting from, about where your team is at, about where your leaders are at, about where your leadership is at, about where your recruiting skills are at, about all of those different things. Be honest about that so that then you can move forward and so that you can be able to grow because we're all growing in this together, right? We're all striving and want to and willing to get to Emerald. And so I love you guys. Thank you for tuning on this morning. I am excited to see the shifts that you guys make, not just that you're thinking about making. I want to see shifts that you're actually going to make to get to where you want to be. So have a wonderful Monday. Love you guys.